Hello everyone, Shadarek here, and today I have a video going over how to read Warcraft logs. Now, this is going to be two different parts in two different videos. This will be the basics guide. This is going over things like going to Warcraft logs and how to find your character, how to look at Mythic Plus logs or even find logs to look at, um, summary page, damage done, taken, healing pages, just kind of taking you around in a log to show how to navigate the page and find things that may be of use to you. If you already have a good understanding of the basics and you look at logs frequently, then you're likely going to want the advanced guide that's going to come out at the same time as this, and I'll have a link in the description below, as well as a pinned comment, and vice versa with that video, linking back to the basics for anyone that doesn't have a good understanding of Warcraft logs and needs to start there. Now, let's get into the basics. First things first, you just come to warcraftlogs.com, and this is where you're going to look for your character. You can make yourself an account, get signed in, and link your characters, and you can also be linked to your guild just to have everything all in one place. But if you're looking for your character, you can just go ahead and type in your name. There will be two entries. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I've noticed this a lot in the last month or so, where there's multiple entries, and it's always showing a character no longer exists, like the characters were deleted or moved. I don't know why that happens, but just click the other one if that's what's happening. As you can see, it's showing that for my character on Bleeding Hollow, and then this one's just fine. Now, from here, it's going to land you on the current raid tier with your highest difficulty of raid parses. But if we're looking for Mythic Plus, on the top bar here on the right, you'll just click the little drop down and go to Mythic Plus Season 2 is our current season. In future seasons, it'll be whatever season we're currently in. And that will take you to a page with all of the dungeons. Now, on this page, there's a few things that we're looking at. One is it's going to show each section for each dungeon, and if I were to click in, I'll open a new tab to keep this up. This would be all my Cinderbrew meteries. And what you'll notice is a lot of these, I log my keys myself, so it shows that they're coming from a log on the right side here under source, and that means they have things like talents, DPS numbers attached. But if it says leaderboard, which if you don't log, many of your logs may show this, that means there's no log of that key, and there's just a leaderboard ranking given by Blizzard as to how many points the key gave. If you want to sort those out, you can just click down and click damage, and that will now only show ones that were logged. And again, this can be done for any of these, and you can also move the main page off of points and go to damage. And you can look at any specific key you want. In this case, let me pull up Dark Flame Cleft. And I can click into my 20 key that was done very recently, and I can compare that to a 19 I did. Now, so you've gotten to your character, and you know how to get through to your logs. If you do not have any logs showing, you will need to start logging your Mythic Plus runs instead of relying on any random pug that you're playing with or a group, someone else in your group doing it. That can be done through either like method raid tools to turn on auto logging, or what I use is the Raider.io app. And with the Raider.io client, you could just turn on live tracking somewhere in the settings. And from live tracking, it will just manually turn on logs every time you enter a raid or Mythic Plus. It'll track the dungeon for you, as well as it does other things, but that's the main thing that I'm using it for. As well as that, it will also automatically delete your log files after about a month, so they won't be stored on your computer, as sometimes we've had people forget to clear these out, and then they post a bin of 200 gigabytes of World of Warcraft logs for multiple years. So you want to avoid that. Raider.io client's got you with that. Now, once you've gotten logs and you want to come through and look, there's a few ways to get yourself around. So one is if you're trying to look at a specific person in a key, like I'm trying to just look at myself, I can either click my name down here, or there's a little drop down from all sources in the top left here. Also, if you're trying to look at a different log in the same, file of logs, I can click the drop down here, and every key that we did, I logged them all together. so you can look at each one and click around to different ones. So right here, I'll click back, and now we're back at the Dark Flame. As for the different tabs and what they do, let's start with the summary page. Now, there's not going to be much here until you click into someone's name. Again, you can click any of the names that are clickable, or the drop down. I'll just click my name here. And here you can see a lot of things. My stats are shown. You can see all my talents that I took in the key. And this means anytime I post a key run, I always have the log in the description below. So you can always come and check my talents, and my gear and everything is all shown here as well. The gear is on the left, the gems and enchants are over here on the right side. And then it'll show basically damage done, taken, and healing. And those are the next three tabs. So we have a damage done tab, and this will just show the damage you've dealt. It will merge similar abilities. On Havoc, that means all the Immolation Aura ideas are merged together, as well as Rage Fires in the drop down as well. So this isn't just Immolation Aura up here, this is also Rage Fire as part of it. And you can see things such as how much the average cast did. And that is the amount of casts divided by the damage, or rather, the damage divided by the casts. So this can be a little bit disingenuous. Sometimes it doesn't pick up casts, especially when you're playing Felsguard. This could be the case, but this should be accurate for Eldrachi, where an average cast of Immolation Aura does 20 million damage, including the Rage Fire. And then you can see how many ticks of it you had, how many hits from specifically like Rage Fire here, average hit, and all that information is nicely displayed, as well as the TPS numbers on the right side. In the Throw Glaive dropdown, that's going to be Soul Scars included in there. Reaver's Glaive is separate, but the Soul Scar damage from Reaver's Glaive is also right up in here. And then Death Sweep, it's separated out between, this is the 3 hits on your main target. The ones that are showing in purple are doing chaos damage, so that's only to your main target. So you can see that it's the 3 hits, and then the bottom one is the single hit at the end that does a lot more. And then the yellow are the physical portions. And as you can see, Death Sweep does not really do much AoE damage, but it does get Wounded Quarried. Same with Blade Dance down here, same thing. And you'll have a couple other things like Hunt, which is, this is the initial hit on the bottom, and this is the dot ticking on the top. And Annihilation and Chaos Striker separated out between their main hand and their offhand swings. There can be a couple things like Mr. Pick Me Up here. This is actually not from me, it's from the healer, and I'm not certain why it didn't reattribute. Usually Warcraft Logs is good about this. For some reason, one tick attributed to me. You could sometimes find weird things like that will show up, but you can more or less just ignore them. Next will be, there's the damage taken tab, and you can just see everything I took damage from. And you can also adjust the timeline here. So you can see that, wow, I took a lot of damage from Eerie Molds. That's Candle King. Makes sense. You can see the big spike where I'm taking that damage. You can actually drag in and look specifically at that window. And you can do this on the damage done and healing pages, and you can just see how much damage you are taking in a given window. So you can see in this window, between that and Throw Dark Flame, I'm taking over 1 million DPS. And if I unclick myself, I can see my whole group. So anything that you need to look at, you can look at this way. As well as, for keys, this is particularly nice. You can actually open this Bosses and Trash tab, and you can go to a specific boss and see your damage taken, or you can click around to, back to Candle King, and it'll just show the whole Candle King fight. You can view your damage dealt on that fight. You can show your whole group's damage on that fight. And you can compare boss to boss very simply doing it this way. And if you want to look at a boss or look at your damage to specific ads, that can also be done from here. So here I'm clicked into Old Waxbeard. And then we have this All Enemies tab. So this is who the damage is being dealt to, and this is who the damage is being dealt from. So I could click it to myself and say, okay, I'm doing 6.5 million DPS. And you can hover these and see where the damage is going and see, wow, that's a lot of pad. But you can click here and click All Waxbeard, or you can also click this button for all bosses, and it will only show boss damage. as well as you can click Dynamite Minecart if you want to see the damage done to minecarts, see who was carrying those in this log, not me. But this is a very good way to get a good judge of who was doing important boss damage and what might need to be fixed if you're having problems with specific ads or anything like that in your keys. And you can view other things like, let's say I want to go look at my Blazicon damage taken, and I want to see why I got hit really hard on one of my Dosing Breaths here. And what I can see here is I didn't actually blur this one. I had nothing up to DR this one. And you can also click over here to events and see the single hit. You can see how much it was mitigated by and how much the hit was for. You can see I absorbed because I did deflecting dance it, so I blade danced it. And interesting things like that. And you can do the same thing with damage dealt. Like if I want to go to Old Waxbeard and view my Wounded Quarry hits, so this is the damage event type, where I'm looking only at Wounded Quarry to Old Waxbeard, and then I can click events here, and I can see it per tick, how much every single tick of damage dealt. So I can see an 11 million Wounded Quarry hit here, and you can keep scrolling down and just see anything interesting that you may want to look at like that. Another 11 million over there. Next is going to be casts. Now again, you can do this per pull, but typically you're going to look at this over a whole dungeon. If you have the events tab open, it's going to show it like this. There's also, on this top right here, a timelines tab, and this will show a nice and neat timeline of your casts. Now at the start of the dungeon, obviously nothing being cast, that first pull is being grouped, but you can see how I do this first pull. Sigil of Flame, I sigil Misery to stop the knock on this pull, and then I start going once threat has been established. And you can go and view how an opener is dealt, and whether or not things were done incorrectly. And then on the table page, we see cast counts. Now, Shattered Soul is just every time a soul is shattered from a mob, it'll show up here even if you don't pick it up. And there could be some inconsistencies, such as Throw Glaive being here. None of these are manual. All of these are auto Throw Glaives by Blade Dance and Death Sweep, which you can actually see lines up. I have 102 Death Sweeps and 63 Blade Dances, which is 165, and I have 165 Throw Glaives. Now, with all of this, this is a good way to be able to compare to a different log. Be like, hey, what am I missing in this dungeon? Or you can even just look at the fight timer and see your dungeon timer and go, hey, this dungeon was 25 minutes and 22 Sigil Smites is pretty good. But if you add that number around 15, you're going to know that you could have potentially had up to 10 more. There's some downtime, so you have to minus a couple from that and account for it. But you can tell where you're missing damage pretty easily once you understand logs and how to look at them. And if you want to look specifically at, hey, where do I have a gap in this ability? I can actually view that here. You can click into it on the cast tab and it will show you where each ability was cast. You can hover it for a timing, or you can go to events and events will show it. This is a minute cooldown. You can see that this is being hit nearly on cooldown. I have a 30-second gap here. That's likely after the first boss died, where we're going to the next pull. And this is where logs are not infallible for Mythic Plus and why VODs are so good, because it's hard to know without context of what's going on. And then you can see I have one large gap here, where I go 2.5 minutes without casting Sigil of Spite. This almost certainly is where we were doing the minecart section. So if I come into the section here, and I unclick Sigil of Spite and look at my casts, and again, I can either do this through events, probably best through timelines, then I can see my Sigil of Spite will be getting used early on in this, and then we're throwing dynamite. And after that, we're just going to have a lot of downtime. So this is where the last mob would have died, is at 20:30. And I don't hit another mob again until 21:36. So over a minute of downtime there, and that's going to cause gaps in your abilities that look weird, so you need to be aware of what's happening in a dungeon. That more or less is everything I wanted to show for the basics. One last thing I can show though is the compare tab. There is also replay, and I should show replay, so let's start with that. replays in the top right here. This can be laggy and sometimes things can get messed up. If they ever do, just refresh your page. That's going to be your best bet. But you can actually see where everyone is given in the dungeon, and you can use the dungeon pulls down here to snap to certain pulls. So this snaps to our second pull of the dungeon when we first left combat, and you can see what exactly we're doing here. You can also increase or lower the speed on the bottom section here, and you can see how our group moves and how we're dealing with a given pull. And if you click around in the dungeon, I can see where Bloodlust is, so I know we're going to be over at Candle King here. And you can view everything this way. The last thing I want to show is the compare function. Now, what compare is this is to compare either two people in the same log. Now, in Mythic Plus, you're not typically going to have another Havoc Demon Hunter to compare to, but you can go look at damage done, and you could go to, a specific boss and look at anything here. However, and there are some problems with doing this. You could see that it only sorted mine, not Squitch's damage, but you could always zoom yourself in from where it references you. Compare is not perfect for Mythic Plus, but it is very useful for Raid. What you can also do, though, is go to a different log, and you can take this code up here, and it's after the report slash and up to the question mark. And it'll give you that instruction here when you go to use compare, where you can hit compare and go to compare reports. When you put that URL in, it will now put these two logs together in one. Might take a second to load. And sometimes you might have something go wrong. Something seems to be wrong with that one, so let me retry. I'll actually do it the other way around this time. And I'll take the code, and I'll compare with URL. Now, there are some problems with this. You can see a very clear timer difference where my first key is a whole 4 minutes longer. So you can always cut off, but this isn't going to be exact. And then I can click myself. The blue version is from log 1, pink is from log 2, and I can look at me compared to me. And I can see where my damage differed from key to key, because I had better damage in the 20 that I did. There was also a difference in raid buffs and other things, but you can compare your damage, you can compare your cast counts, and just kind of get an idea of what was different in your keys. I can see in this key I had less Annihilation Chaos Strikes in general, less Reaver's Glaives, less Soul Generated. So anything like that. You can also view damage taken on a given fight. You could look at healing and just view healing that was done over the key. Really anything that you need to look at can be done through this compare tool as well. And where it can be used is, instead of comparing to yourself, you could pull up a high M+ Demon Hunter's logs, and you could view your logs compared to theirs. So instead of just comparing to yourself, you could compare to a higher log on a similar timer and look where the cast counts really differ to see why they did so much more than you. So this video, I covered Warcraft logs and how to get to your character, how to look at Mythic Plus logs, or to start recording if you don't have any yet, what is in the summary page, the damage done, taken, healing pages, and how to navigate them, both on who you're looking at and the targets that you are looking at as well. You can also change the ability that you're looking at, anything like that. And I also went over comparing of different logs, pass counts, where the timeline button is, how replays work, and lastly, events for timers. That is everything I wanted to cover for this basics guide. Again, I will be having an advanced Mythic Plus Demon Hunter guide coming out for Havoc specifically, just what you want to look for in Mythic Plus and how to improve your damage. So I will have that linked in the description below and in a pinned comment, so you can continue to that if you'd like to learn from that. But for now, have yourself a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching.